Election Yard back with the latest on the 2025 Virginia governor's race, the best sleeveless election commentary in town. Maybe, I don't know, I don't do market research on this sort of thing. This video was recorded on Labor Day weekend, so about 2 months to go until Virginia elects a new governor. We do this every 4 years, by the way, because the Commonwealth of Virginia is the only state to bar incumbent governors from running for re-election for consecutive terms. Before we go further, time to plug the website electionyard.com. Don't forget to subscribe because this thing ain't over yet. Anyway, back to the Virginia race to succeed Glenn Youngkin. First, the polls. There have not been many new releases over the summer, and I would expect this to change as we get into September and people in the Commonwealth start to become more interested in the election. Being here, as I recently noted on the Blue Sky account, I'm not sure a lot of Virginians are super plugged into this race yet. It's really only in the last few weeks that I've seen any lawn signs pop up at all for either the statewide or House of Delegates races. Even just within the last few days, I've started to see delegate candidates go up with ads. There have been a few Democrats kvetching about the two new polls, so I'm going to look at these as objectively as I can. I'll start with the coefficient poll. Survey dates August 23rd to 26th. This was the most recent one released. In it, Democrat Abigail Spanberger is up 48 to 43 over GOP Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears. 7% are undecided and 3% are apparently voting for someone else. I think the reason a few Democrats are concerned is that there were polls earlier in the summer that had Spanberger up double digits, and this one had her up 5. A couple things. First, coefficient is a GOP-aligned pollster. And anytime you have a partisan poll, whether blue or red, you have to assume that there's a little bit of bias baked in. May not be a lot, but this may not be an entirely accurate representation either. Second, their last poll from June had Spanberger ahead by only 3, 46 to 43, and their January poll had a 40 to 40 tie with a lot of undecideds. So Spanberger's advantage has actually been growing. Finally, of the pollsters who've been digging into this gubernatorial race, coefficient has been producing the most favorable results to Sears, and they still have her down 5, which, as I said, is worse than their last one. The other new poll was from Roanoke College, and this one had Spanberger ahead 46 to 39 with 14% undecided and 1% for other candidates. Now, someone who wants Spanberger to win and is panicking over that will say, in the last Roanoke poll, she was up 17. That is technically true, but it doesn't really capture the whole picture. In May, Roanoke had Spanberger ahead 43 to 26, and Sears, she was losing to undecideds at 28%. Well, you and I both know that Sears is not getting 26%. What I see here is undecideds starting to make up their minds, including a lot of Republicans. By the way, Spanberger also gained a few points since their last one. If you're going to be in the habit of comparing one pollster's current polls to ones they did in the spring, you have to be aware that many of them had high undecideds. The newer ones have fewer, so we're starting to get a more accurate picture of the race. There have been polls that showed Spanberger way ahead, double digits, and it never really felt right. Even the best gubernatorial year for Democrats in recent times was 2017, Ralph Northam's year, and he won by 9. American politics are more polarized now than they were then. A 10-point win for Spanberger would, I think, be optimistic for them, on the high end of what's realistic. My thinking has been, if this is the year Democrats think it's going to be, this is probably going to be a 5 to 8 point spread for Spanberger, a respectable but not flashy win. Even winning by 5 probably sweeps in the Democrats in Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General. Youngkin only won by 2 in 2021, and the GOP swept. I don't think a lot of tickets are going to split. Maybe Jason Miyares wins if it's unexpectedly close, but if it's not, he's gone too. To close out this point, for the reasons just cited, and I saw Roanoke do this with their own poll, I don't think it's entirely accurate to frame it as Spanberger was up a lot and the race tightened. It's more like undecideds came home and people are starting to pay attention. There really isn't any concrete sign that Sears has true momentum. This can change, but that we have yet to see. On to the news. There have been a few recent happenings in the race. There was a recent incident late in August where Someone protested Sears in Arlington County with a racist sign. I won't repeat what it said, but I've seen the photos. Of course, there's no place in our politics for that sort of bigotry. Both gubernatorial campaigns condemned it. The sign deserved the condemnation that it got. In other news, the GOP campaign has at least been finding a message after months of turmoil. Sears and the GOP are pivoting to the so-called culture war. Specifically, she has been running against trans rights. This was something that worked for the Republicans to some extent in the 2024 election overall. Sears has been speaking her opposition in hopes that it will start activating the base, and more importantly for Sears, shifting focus away from the economy and jobs. Is Sears talking about the economy? Yes, she is. It can't be ignored. But it's hard to run on affordability and say, let's continue Youngkin's policies when the cost of living is still going in the wrong direction. That'll be one thing that won't help her. In terms of fundraising, there's been news that some GOP donors and Glenn Youngkin's old fundraising arm are waking up. It'll be a bit until we get updated fundraising totals. However, what we do know is that Spanberger has had the advantage, and it was about 3-to-1 cash on hand at the beginning of summer, about $15 million to 5. Spanberger has been investing big in ads going down the stretch this fall, and that is where that money advantage comes into play. Sears has a lot of ground to make up in that area. And that fundraising advantage has allowed Spanberger to get well out ahead of things. Whereas it just seems as though Sears has been playing from behind pretty much since the beginning of the campaign. Sears may start to ramp up here soon, but being in Virginia, these Spanberger ads have been going strong all summer. On to the big picture. The last time the GOP won a governor's race in Virginia while they also held the White House was 1973. Mills Godwin was elected governor and Richard Nixon was president. Virginia does not always elect the national opposition party to the governorship. A Democrat has won with a Democratic president since then. But it's a thing, and it happens far more often than not. The bottom line is this. If this gubernatorial election becomes a referendum on Donald Trump, then the Republicans are going to lose. He is in power. He lost Virginia 3 times. The cost of living is still going up, and some federal workers in the state lost their jobs. I read an article today suggesting that Virginia's job losses were either the worst or nearly the worst in the U.S. at this point this year. And Trump's role in that is undeniable. Also, Trump's approval rating in the state is underwater, and it always has been. It's probably somewhere in the low 40s in the Commonwealth. He did not suddenly become popular here. When Youngkin won in 2021, Biden was president, and his popularity was already sinking. Youngkin ran his campaign against Biden about as much as against Terry McAuliffe, while walking a tightrope of wanting Trump's support while appearing not to be too close to him. And I don't know who was, but McAuliffe was not the right guy for the Democrats in 2021. There was no great desire for him to come back as governor, though any Democrat might have had it tough because of Biden. For Youngkin, a lot of things had to go right. He had to push the right buttons, and even at that, he only won by 2 points. Now, Sears is not even as good of a candidate. Biden is gone, and the 2021 playbook is only going to get her so far. You can see the GOP is at the point where they're scrapping for anything they can get in terms of positive momentum. It remains to be seen if that's going to be enough, but if the 2 main issues are the economy and so-called bathroom bills, the economy is going to dictate the election. It's just common sense. People in this country vote with their wallets all the time. If this were Youngkin running for re-election, I think you might have a different story, though I think Spanberger would still be formidable. However, he's not because he can't, and I think Democrats are doing okay at defining Sears as an out-of-touch extremist. I've seen the ads. They're pretty effective. One of them has her on that CNN interview being asked about the federal job losses, and she tells the interviewer basically she doesn't want to answer, and she rejects the premise of the question. Not a great look, but it's up to the voters to decide all of this. That's the latest on Virginia Governor with 2 months to go. We'll be back soon on Election Yard with another update. In the meantime, follow and subscribe and visit us at electionyard.com.